This gaming journalist is afraid of indie games because they are too successful? Welcome everybody, it's I, Ghost Guy with one eye. Today I stumbled across an article on the website Game Developer, written by Brian Francis, who shares his fear and spine-chilling realization that the gaming industry is changing. And if you ask me, it's changing for the better. But he sees it a little bit different. Let's go over some of the points he's making. I will link the article in the description below if you want to read the full thing yourself. Headline reads: the deprofessionalization of the video games was on full display at PAX East. PAX East feels like a warning. Explosively successful games by solo devs and small teams are great, but it could lead to a de-earth of a vital specialists. What exactly are these specialists and what's their value if one person or like a 5-person team can develop and publish a game by themselves? He opens with, at DICE and GDC this year, I heard talk of a trend in game development that sent a chill down my spine. Deprofessionalization, as A16Z marketing partner Ryan defines it. Deprofessionalization is a phenomenon driven by the overperformance of older titles, particularly free-to-play live service games, large studios struggling to drive sales, and the outsized success of some solo developers and small teams. It chilled down his spine. Like, what the fuck? Why is he framing it so dramatic? Some of these people will decide to go indie, he continues. Others will leave gaming altogether, and in between there's a vast spectrum of irregular working arrangements available. Good. The actually talented people will be better off without restrictions of giant companies that need 6 months to push out a hotfix because it has to go through 20 management meetings, 5 investor reports, 13 market analysis, and a player metric specialist before anything can happen. He then goes on, wandering through these booths, I found a mix of truly excellent and inspiring games, but also found myself bubbling with frustration. Few of the developers on display were working on teams larger than 3 people. They talked about publishers wanting ever more expensive offerings as part of their pitch deck. Short-term contractors seemed to be the best way to plug gaps. Why did it feel like so few proper businesses were fighting to get their games in the front of players at PAX? Bubbling with frustration, like imagine him walking between the booths just shaking violently, like, oh, I better not see just 2 people at the booth. Duh, there's only 1. Also, are these indie devs not proper business? Is it because they won't let themselves be taken advantage of publishers because they don't need gaming journalists to promote their game? By the way, these are the businesses fighting to get their games to the front line. Hope that helps. That held up in his survey of game spoofing at PAX. The developers of Mycopunk and Cat's Secretary had some of the larger teams on the floor of 5 to 6 people. Why do you need more? What do you think more people will achieve? If 5 or 6 people are enough to make the game, why would you overhire? You think a cat puzzle game needs like 100 employees? Diablo 4 had 9,166 people work on it. The result is a mediocre ARPG that is full price, $40 expansions, battle pass, in-game shop with limited time skins that are up to $25 and more each. I take that 5-person game anytime over that shit. Moving on, my favorite game I saw, We Harvest Shadows, is being developed by the First Tree solo developer David Whaley. Whaley explained that he's hiring a contract coder to help with dense system design fueling the farming part of his horror farming simulator. The story was the same everywhere I went, solo devs, 2-person teams, and publishers fishing for low-budget indie hits were the talk of the show. Good. So I get his vision of the game, not some Frankenstein's monster made by executives and consultant firms. By the way, We Harvest Shadows is one of my most anticipated games right now. On Steam you can find a demo. It's a very unique experience, balancing a peaceful farming aspect with psychological horror and a very personal story about one's self-worth and living with depression. I played the demo on stream a while back and I keep checking on it, hoping to see more news or a release date. You should definitely check it out. I will link it below. I want to be clear here, no one I spoke with at PAX East should feel obligated to give anyone a job. There are small teams making the most of limited resources, and it's the acceleration in game development technology that's made it possible. What feels wrong is how few people seem to benefit from the status quo. Few people benefit from the status quo. What is that supposed to mean? You think indie devs schemed this? If anyone is to blame for the status quo, it's the big companies that shit themselves with every $300 million budget release. Those fail to make back their money and then they fire hundreds of people. My dude, you look in the wrong direction for the blame. Stop bootlicking for these soulless corporations that treat their devs exposable. He then has a little sidetrack and talks about the veteran developer Aaron Rutledge, a former lead designer on League of Legends, Call of Duty Black Ops 4, Apex Legends, who left Respawn Entertainment in 2024 and founded a consultancy firm called Area Denial. Rutledge deserves his success, and the life of a traveling creative called on by other studios sounds romantic. But as a foundation for game development, it's a framework that celebrates the few over the many. It narrows which roles are considered essential for making great games, often designers and programmers, and treats other positions as somehow less essential. You could see someone like Whaley hiring someone like Rutledge to bring some of that AAA experience to a small game. If they aren't essential, then why do they exist? Do you always ask for handouts? You think the customer cares what names are attached to games? This might be shocking, but I will say 90% of gamers couldn't name one person involved in most games. Why? Because we don't care. We want a good and fun game. That's all. There are a few exceptions like Hideo Kojima, Miyazaki, Miyamoto, who are well known in the mainstream now. Also the last part. You really could see someone like Whaley, who makes a survival farming horror game that is narrative driven, hire someone that was a lead designer in competitive online PvP games like Call of Duty, Apex and League. Really? Tell me more about that. I would love to see the connection here. I think you're just talking out of your ass. Also, I highly doubt that one person or a small development team would be able to afford consultancy from such a prestigious name. I would believe his service will cost quite a bit. No offense, Whaley. I don't mean you personally. I'm just using you as an example here. He adds to that, but that feels like the polar ends of who can benefit in the deprofessionalized world. Developers with the stability to swing big for big shot ideas and programmers or designers with deep career experience that can be called in like a group of noble mercenaries. People in between will be left out. This is so stupid. Why is it with jobs that are considered art, people just don't think rational anymore? In every other field, you do a bad or mediocre job, you lose your job. Do you go into a restaurant and ask for the mediocre chef who serves you a burnt steak too? No, you fucking don't. And I guarantee you, the owner will hire a chef who can cook a perfect steak any time over someone who can't. Like in any other field of work, the world doesn't work like this. Oh, here we go. My PAX trip validated my fear that free professions are especially vulnerable in this deprofessionalized world. Artists, writers, and those working in game audio or music. Those roles seemed vulnerable because on the small teams, they were the roles developers mentioned doing in some kind of shared or joint fashion. You know who cut out these jobs first? Big companies. All three risk compartmentalization as asset creators. Their work treated as products you can purchase off a store shelf. First, no one calls them asset creators. Second, who buys writing on a shelf storefront? Like, what? Third, music has been a freelance job outside of gaming since forever. Not that much different for gaming. Also, you can gas this up as the holiest of art forms. That doesn't matter, because that is how gamers see video games. Product. On a shelf, you buy or don't buy. Every artist in games knows how hard it is to make a living doing what you love. In-house artist positions have faded away as companies look overseas to produce as many assets as humanly possible at the lowest living wage. Enthusiasm for AI-generated assets are nudging this trend along. In the gun-for-hire mindset, working artists aren't worth anything to game development because they are producing goods to be used, not participants in the process. Art directors are in a slightly more stable position, but only by virtue of knowing what looks good and telling someone else what they want to do. Or maybe you just overvalued them for the longest time. Games like Schedule 1 show that no one really cares about 4K graphics, motion capture movement, little hair on the skin and whatnot. It is at most acknowledged the first time you see it, but after a minute, it's forgotten. Souls games are a great example too. The quality of the textures is pretty low, the art direction is outstanding. You don't need high quality textures and 4K visuals. You just need a good theme and don't look like complete trash, okay? Game writers have long described frustration with how they are treated by the industry, often brought in later in the process and sometimes treated as if they lie in opposition to the rest of the development team. Some studios leaned on the job title of narrative designer for professionals who write and implement narrative events. That still speaks to a mistrust of the profession, that producing words isn't enough to bring value to a team. How are indie games at fault for how the bigger companies treat writers? Most games simply don't need a super in-depth narrative and world. Or the lead designer dev has the vision in his head already. Ryan Rigney explained to me that the game industry has one ace up its sleeve. Its indie market is a commercial viable market. People are paying for these games, he exclaimed. This is not happening for indie filmmakers. This isn't happening for books. What's happening for indie games and small studios won't replace the jobs lost at the major publishers, but it will create opportunity for the most creative, most determined people. The beauty of a free market. But don't rush off to start your indie dreams. It's still as true as it was for years that most indie games do not succeed. And those that don't succeed can still be financial fodder for the shovel merchants of the world, your technology companies, your payment processors, your game platforms, your investors, etc. Plenty of companies are standing ready to profit on devs gunning to be the next Schedule 1. Do you intentionally miss the point of independent games? You just want them to be in the same creative and moral grinder as these AAA companies. Can you even fathom that they don't need that? They can market themselves on social media, sponsor streamers to play their games for a couple hours. They can publish themselves on Steam, Epic, good old games. Payment is handled by them. Fuck investors. Technology companies? Like what? Is Unreal Engine forcing themselves on them with a gun to their head? Sounds to me like you just want to fearmonger. Some games will make it big, some won't. That's simply the nature of a free market. But you can really help your success by targeting actual gamers and their interests. The 230th cat puzzle game will most likely not be achieving the same success as Schedule 1 or Expedition 33, but you don't have to sell millions of copies with your first game. You can make small games with little risk of losing money and gain experience in development and marketing yourself. Then create bigger projects with the money you hopefully made. Don't be discouraged by this guy. He is a relic of the past, desperately trying to hang on what little relevancy he still has. Pathetic. Is there a way deprofessionalization can benefit the developers left behind? Ryan Rigney raised one fair point. Part of the reason some indies are running circles around large companies is that those companies can mismanage creative so badly they go for years without shipping a game. If someone smart could crack that problem, improve management at large organizations and make sure games make it out the door, that could be a way to balance the trend. They are so close. They are so close to see the problem. They are in the forest and they are almost able to see the tree. Just ask the Expedition 33 team. There's a couple interviews. They exactly talked about that. Hey, it's just an indie game. Don't have to listen to them. It's not a proper business, am I right? So, you want to know how to fix? Fire 80% of the management team that is trapped in an endless cycle of decision making and getting green light from investors. Cut down budgets. These $300 million investments turn every single release into a make it or break it kind of deal for the company. You cry about the industry downsizing when the reality is that it has overhired during COVID like crazy. Bloated budgets killed any form of creative freedom, holding devs in a chokehold of expectations and little time to actually make the game, topping it off with awful crunch times, shitting out mediocre unfinished slop, only for gaming journalists to run defense for their income source and fading relevancy. It's their own fault. Remember too big to fail? We are now at too big to succeed. He finished his article. Indeed, PAX East showed that we need creative solutions. One shouldn't need to be a social media wunderkind, a AAA veteran with years of hard-to-earn experience, or a jack of all trades to have a career in game development. That path does bring us some wildly inventive games, but leaves us with a community of developers hustling on gig work to keep their dreams alive. I'm pretty sure most of the successful indie games out there don't have any of that. They don't have like big AAA experience. They're not jack of all trades. Maybe they just work hard to achieve their dream, put in the work, put in the time. Maybe you don't need to be a wunderkind. Maybe you just have to, you know, try a little bit more. The gaming industry is healing again, thanks to the hard work of indie developers. They create truly unique experiences. They take risks. They have passion. AAA companies will never get any sympathy from me. With their overblown budgets, predatory business strategies, greedy monetization, and thousands of employees that will get fired afterwards anyways. Now you know what I think about this. Let's go over some of the comments and see what they think about this article. On Reddit, we have some people here. Hasn't PAX always been dominated by indie booths? The response to that, I always thought the great thing about PAX and similar conventions was that it gives space to exactly these kind of devs, while E3 and such are dominant by the big companies. 10-15 years ago, everyone was thrilled to see indie devs thriving, and they still should be. True. To be honest, this is my favorite part of this awful timeline. Give me more. I feed off of assholes at the top making excuses as to why poorly made content is received poorly. I genuinely hope they continue to pour their endless money into absurd trends that nobody asked for and wonder why they don't get the expected returns. This is what I'm living for in the 2020s. Dang! Based? And the last one. The small teams of computer science nerds is what brought us Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, Duke Nukem 3D, and Quake. The 16-year-olds in their basements brought us Dota, Counter-Strike, Team Fortress, and Minecraft. Indie teams and solo devs brought us Valheim and Stardew Valley, and the entire freaking survival genre. Nearly every single innovation in gaming was done by small teams or it was done by modders for free. Even Fortnite, one of the most popular online games right now, wouldn't even exist as we know it today if it wasn't for the Battle Royale mods for Minecraft and Arma 2. What did the professional industry give us? Microtransactions, intrusive DRM, always online single player games, no mod support, no LAN support. Boo fucking who? The professional game industry wouldn't touch Conker's Bad Fur Day with a 10-feet pole. They are creatively bankrupt. Ooh, couldn't say it any better. To finish off this video, AAA games are a joke, gaming journalists are a joke. All of you can lose your jobs for all I care. None of you work in the interest of us, the gamers. We are the customers, we decide who gets to stay and who will have to put the fries in the bag again. Like and subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments below, I read all of them. See you in the next one, bye!